is going on, Wolfpack Nation? Welcome back once again, y'all, to the Tuffy Talk live show. Y'all, as again, we are now 10 days away from the season opener, y'all. NC State versus Connecticut, baby. 10 days away. We are less than 4 hours away from being single digits away, y'all. It is exciting to say the least. We have been looking forward to this forever. I know that Greg, every single day when he wakes up in the morning and he rolls over and he picks up his phone, he sees one day closer, baby, and we are ready for it. So with that being said, if you've been with us for, you know the drill, but if you haven't, just as a reminder, send any questions, thoughts, comments that you may have in the comment section, and we will get to all of them here today. But we got an exciting show today, as we're going to be talking to some keys to the game here. As we got our season previews and predictions coming up. Starting first part will come out tomorrow morning, so make sure to stay tuned for that. And then part 2 and 3 will come out Wednesday and Thursday morning. But again, that was more of kind of predictions, but we want to kind of talk a little bit more about the keys to the season here today. So make sure to give us your thoughts here in the comments. And then we'll get to some Tuffy's tweets of the week as well. But first and foremost, Greg and Macon, I mean, just kind of talk to me here. I mean, it's crazy to think about that there's not going to be a single weekend for the rest of 2023 without college football. Next week, Notre Dame versus Navy. I think I don't think that'll be a blowout. I think it'll be an interesting game, to say the least. Seeing Sam Hartman in a gold helmet will be, and not a Wake Forest gold helmet, but in the gold helmet will be quite a, like a double take, to say the least.
Yeah, I'm just been looking up some of these week 1 matchups just across the country.
You mean week 0 or week 1?
Week 0, whatever you want to call it. But I'm looking here, at least on Google, they call week 1 August 26th and all that. So
okay.
So it starts even there. But yeah, like I'm excited about it. You've got some really good matchups. I know Navy, Notre Dame's a rivalry, but like Florida, Utah. There's not a whole lot. ECU, Michigan will be interesting to see what the Pirates do up there. There's not a ton beyond that. West Virginia, Penn State, UNC, South Carolina, Clemson, Duke. I think the biggest one is going to come when we have Florida. I think it's Florida State and LSU play each other. I think that's correct. So to me, and I walked outside Saturday morning, and it felt a little cooler outside. When it sat out there a little bit, really just enjoyed just sitting and resting and listening outside. I mean, it feels like football, man. It felt like football. Again, I was like, oh man, I am so ready. I'm so ready.
I love it. Yeah. Greg, anything to add on it, man?
All I have to say is I have a new cup today. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, wow.
Greg the Leg. So
how'd you get that?
New tailgating cup.
Why do I even try now? Why do I even try?
I got my new tailgate cup. I'm excited about it. I had to break it in for tonight.
Is it a red Solo cup that's machine washable? I thought that is great.
Yeah, it's like a quasi. My daughter hates that word quasi, but it's definitely like a quasi red Solo cup. But I was able to get it engraved, so I thought, you know what, might as well embrace the Greg the Leg. But yeah, I am so excited about football. I now have plans now for every Saturday for the rest of the year.
So are you traveling to every game now, Greg?
Yeah, we're doing every one again.
Golly, man, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Which I mean, I would say for this year, Greg, is not as much of an achievement as last year, but still, I mean, it's an achievement though, for sure.
Yeah, no, 8,000 miles last year. It won't be anywhere near that probably. I literally just purchased my last game tickets for Virginia Tech about an hour ago. So
where are you sitting at?
15R, 15L, something like that. I can't remember.
Okay. I don't know exactly where ours at. Are you on the away side or home side?
Away side, of course. Yeah.
I think you're on the same side. I think you're pretty close to where me and my wife are going to be sitting.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's just the fact that we're even at that point, right? You're about to single digits. So.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And Leighton got your Duke tickets yesterday, so
I got to get mine.
We're going to be well represented on the road this year, and I'm excited about it. And I was talking with a bunch of the players on Saturday at Meet the Pack Day, and they were excited about what we're doing and that we're going to be on the road with them, and they're pumped up just as much as we are.
Yeah, definitely got to give a shout out too. I know that a lot of people were commenting saying they were going to be there too. So looking forward to meeting a lot of new people, members of Wolfpack Nation, even the ones that we've met before. Looking forward to seeing you all at some games. And obviously already got some of our
Diehards.
closest followers here in the chats already with Michelle. Good Marvelous Monday, Wolfpack Nation. Appreciate you, Michelle. And they got our boy Hunter, awesome, here in the chat with us as well. Our boy Winston as well, who's been on the show been on the channel with us. He was one of the guys on the fan interviews, which was awesome. And then also in game reminding us, say happy first day of classes to everybody within the state as well. Love to see Coach Doran, at the commencement or the convocation, whatever it's called, for the freshman students class 2027, teaching the Wolfpack chants, and then the band doing the, teaching all the needs to knows. And by the way, speaking of needs to knows, Greg. So did our poll of the, and that's another Wolfpack first down, did that change at all? Like your thoughts of, are you going to be changing the move, or are you sticking with wolf, wolf, wolf? Like, what's your thoughts?
I honestly, I just don't know what it is. Like
Greg, I will tell
It's
you,
still
man.
like
It's move, move, move. It's always
Well-
been move, move, move.
I thought it was move too, but then I started hearing people say wolf, wolf, wolf. So I voted for wolf, wolf, wolf. But I
Yeah.
don't know.
No.
Well, I
Oh.
think that move makes the most sense because it's move the chains, move.
See, look, we got a
But, I
student
mean-
in the chat right now
Yeah,
saying
I'm okay
move,
with
move,
it.
move. That's it.
But
Give me the cup. Give me the cup, Greg. You don't need to hurry. Give me the cup.
Well, I have this. What do you have?
Oh shoot!
Ooh, I like it.
have half
I
a
like
cookie. I have half a cookie.
Okay.
Greg. I've got
put it right
I
there.
got hot takes.
You got
Oh,
fire.
hot take.
All right,
I love it.
caveman.
Oh, I do have this though. Here's my one thing I got.
Ooh.
Oh, the old school.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
So that's one thing.
But I think the biggest thing which came out of it was that it's definitely not like 95%. It's definitely pretty split. And there's even a lot of people that don't like the chant either. So
we found a couple of those over
Yeah.
the weekend.
that were pretty hardcore, like that we're not fans. So but either way, it's gonna happen. I like it, and I think that luckily enough, Wolf and Move are gonna sound close enough where it's not really gonna make much of a difference. So looking forward to hearing it either way. So
I think when you have 58,000 roughly, and about half of those are drunk, it all sounds the same at the end of the day. So it's just a bunch of noise. So.
Yeah, well, looking forward to it. And again, I mean, student section was amazing last year, and definitely need the exact same this season. Need the student section to be filled and stay filled through 4 quarters, y'all. Got to support these guys 100%. It's going to be a lot of exciting games this year. Not really many blowouts, so enjoy every minute, y'all, and be there and support these guys all the way through. So let's go ahead and jump into it, y'all, here. So what I did was I put together my 3 keys for offense and my 3 keys for defense for NC State football for 2023. Macon and Greg haven't even seen them as well, so they're going to be reacting to my list here. We're going to go one by one, and let us know in the chat here, y'all, your thoughts on each point as we go here as well. So with that being said, we're going to start with offense. So I think that's because I think this is the biggest question, side of the ball heading into this year, obviously. So again, 3 points. We're going to start with our third point being the least biggest key, and then first being the biggest key for that side of the ball. So again, the third biggest key for offense for me heading into the season is the offensive line. I know that a lot of people, I'm sure Greg and Macon might have this one a little bit higher. But for me, I feel confident just obviously with Coach 2J, and the fact that when we had Savannah on, she made it very clear this is the best talent-wise offensive line Coach 2J has ever inherited. And also the fact that you do have, a guy at center and then your 2 tackle positions with Tim McKay, Anthony Belton, and then Dylan McMahon in the center, which is great. Now, the other question is who are going to be those 2 guard spots? What is the depth going to be like? So, and I think even as well, there's some freshmen offensive linemen that maybe 4 games, even maybe halfway through the season, might, have come on enough to the offense and have come up to speed enough where they might be even, flirting with some playing time as well. So, so for me, I think the biggest thing is just, can we give Brandon Armstrong the protection that he needs? Can we open some holes for the running backs? And build around those 3 main pieces. But Greg, give me your thoughts first here, offensive line.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what your other two are before I, say that this is the third.
Sure.
The I agree with what you said when we had Savannah on. I think this is going to be a unit where it's going to probably surprise people. The biggest thing is can we get guys up to speed in the depth? We've had some injury issues the last couple of years on the offensive line. Who's going to be, some of these key backups, who's going to be like the swing guy, who can play both sides. And then the one thing I will say about the offensive line is if there is some breakdowns at all, you do have a more mobile quarterback back there to kind of bail you out. So I could see maybe why you might have this as third based on some of those data points.
Yeah. Macon?
Yeah, I'd be just curious what you have at 1 and 2.
Yeah, that's
because
me too.
I mean, I don't want to pass judgment just yet. I think this is definitely one of my biggest concerns. I think if I'm imagining 2 is the run game or running back, something like that, but I feel like they go hand in hand. If you have no line, you have no offense. So to me, this is generally like offensive lines up there. I mean, then again,
Yeah.
you could say if you have no quarterback, you have no offense. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'm gonna be very curious to see what you got 1 and 2. But offensive line's a big deal, and I agree with anything
Yeah.
Greg's saying.
Cool, great. So yeah, so for me, I mean, definitely the biggest thing, kind of flirting, kind of leading up to 2 here is, I definitely did thinking because, definitely wide receiver wise, there's a lot of questions of, who's going to step up running back wise. Is it going to be enough with Michael Allen and Jordan Houston there? So what I did was kind of went a different approach. I said reliability / leadership from playmakers. And the reason why I said this is first of all, we have a lot of big games this year, right? I mean, a lot of big puppies coming to town with Miami, Notre Dame, Clemson, UNC, you name it. And so there's going to be a lot of times this year where somebody's going to have to step up and make plays in key situations. And I think that because the biggest thing with Anai's offense, one of the things that I think we've seen, when you look at history, is that Anai's offense does not need that guy. He does not need necessarily that Emeka Mezi or that Jacoby Myers to be successful. At the end of the day, we just need guys to step up in key situations and be ready to go. And luckily enough, I mean, with this offense, the biggest thing you've heard the whole offseason is that we have a ton of different playmakers that could be difference makers in any game, whether it's Julian Gray, Bradley Rosner, Michael Allen, Jordan Houston, Trent Penix, Javante Vereen, Keon Lassane, you name it. Like, we have a ton of different guys. And so we don't necessarily need, one specific guy to be that guy every single game. But if you're hot and you're rolling, we need you to continue and lead this team and come up with those big plays and make those big and come up with those balls when called upon, because there's going to be times where you're 3rd and 12, 4th and 1, and we need you to step up, and we need these guys to come through for us. So I just kind of went more of that approach instead of talking more. Yeah, sure, running back is going to be a question, wide receiver is going to be a question, but at the end of the day, we don't necessarily need you to focus on being the guy. We just need you to focus on when you're called upon, make that play, especially in a lot of these games this year. So, what's your thoughts here first, man?
I think that can be said a lot of ways, like for every team. I just think with State having a bunch of, particularly, I'm thinking in the wide receivers, like those guys are not the most notable players, right? You have guys who have shown a lot of potential: Anthony Smith, Terrell Timmons. I think Lassane's shown what he's got. I don't think Lassane's really anything more than what he has shown as like a solid possession receiver. But I am looking at those rooks, Porter Rooks. I mean, the guy has been here he's a senior, right? He's got to take a step up, and he's just kind of been a wash, in my opinion, for this offense the last few years. They're going to have to do that if they're going to be good. I mean, that's your point. It's a key for success this season. So, yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. And again, just to kind of, hype on it again, I mean, obviously, yeah, every team needs their guys to be reliable and be in leadership. But I'm more speaking because I don't think there will be, I mean, if it happens this season, great. But I don't think there will be necessarily a guy that will be the guy for this season. I think it's going to be depending on who our defense is playing against, whether it's more deep throw, aggressive, or more short game, consistent. It kind of is going to change each week. And then, like, Julian Gray might be hot one game, but then Keon Lassane might be hot a different game, and that's okay. That's okay with a nice offense. So, Greg, your turn here, my man.
Yeah, the reliability leadership. I really like the point where we have a nice mixture of upperclassmen and lowerclassmen on this team, especially in key positions. And I think, you could pretty much point to every position group on the offensive side that they have a senior type person, whether it's, Jordan Houston in the backfield, of course you got Brennan Armstrong, Lasane is a senior. I think McKay is like a senior, I believe. If I always get confused now with all these COVID years and where they really line up. But point being is when times get tough, you got guys that can lean on the younger guys to kind of pick them up. If there's someone makes a mistake in the game, and kind of keep the highs level headed and then the lows not too low.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to have a game or two where you mentioned. You're going to have a Concepcion, a Juice Farine.
That's another guy I forgot.
One of these young guys are going to have a monster game. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So, to your point, with the nice system, he finds the weakness on the other side, and he'll exploit the heck out of it. And if one dude gets 20 looks, then that's just what it's going to be. He's going to go to it until the other team figures it out.
Well, because the other thing too, to add to leadership, is that since it is the ball is going to be spread out. I mean, it's just simple as that. I mean, like there's not going to be a guy that's getting 100 targets this year. Right. I mean, it's going to be very split out. Is that there has to be a leadership with understanding that it has to be the team before I. Like, there can't be a guy saying I need to get the ball more. It should be whatever's best for the team is what's best for the team. So that's another kind of leadership thing that's got to be, shown in this locker room, which maturity. I totally believe there is. Yeah, exactly. Maturity, 100%. So now moving on to our last one, then we'll get to some of the keys in the comments here, but I don't think that many people will be shocked by this first key. Brennan Armstrong. I mean, he's got to be the biggest key here for this offense. I don't know if, for all those that, don't know this already, Brennan Armstrong is going to be our starting quarterback versus UConn.
Wait, what?
I know what breaking news. Yeah. Hot take right there. Brennan Armstrong being the
get the lighter out, Macon.
Yeah. Where's it at? Come over here, buddy. Hello, old friends.
Yeah. But the biggest thing for me is that if you see MJ play in a game outside of garbage time or second half versus VMI or whatever that may be, then that's a problem. That's not a good thing. We don't want to see MJ outside of that time. And that's okay. I mean, because the biggest thing, which I think is most exciting to me, is hearing about the speed that Brennan Armstrong, possesses, and talking about how, he's the most fastest, and I know that's not Englishly correct or grammarly correct, but
Englishly correct. I like how you did
Englishly correct. Right. But he gives you that speed that there hasn't been at with the previous quarterbacks that Doran has had. Jacoby Brissett wasn't a fast guy. Ryan Finley, I would say, I mean, he had some speed to him. You got to watch out for him, but deceptive speed for sure. But Brennan Armstrong does have that. And again, this is a guy that coming into the season, he has his offensive coordinator again that he did 2 years ago. There's a lot of questions about him this offseason, talking about, well, are we going to see the 2021 Brennan Armstrong, or are we going to see a 2022 Brennan Armstrong? At the end of the day, as everybody knows with football, it's a quarterback driven game. And if your quarterback is top notch, then you're going to have at least a solid offense game in and game out. Go ahead.
I'm gonna make this point here. As Winston saying, as long as we don't throw 10,393,993,000,002 screen passes a game, we'll be fine.
Exactly. Well,
I had to say the number. I had to go ahead and say it all.
How long you were working that out in your head?
I know you've been counting.
I was like, okay, where's this? Yeah.
You've been counting those digits.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So again, just kind of last thing is just really for Brennan, if he could take that next step and be that quarterback that we expect him to be, and be that guy with the chip on his shoulder that we expect him to be going into his draft year, then I think that we're in for top 25, top 30 offense in the country, and we're going to be looking towards a very successful season this season. Greg, thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, your team usually goes as far as your quarterback's got to take you. The one thing that fans just need to be patient with is we're going to turn the ball over some this year. We may not be accustomed to that. He's going to push the ball down the field, and as long as he's not overly reckless with it, you're going to give up an interception or two. As long as it's not at key points of the game where it cost you, we're going to be fine. But I think the because of Anai's offense, he's a very vertical offense, unlike what Winston said, where we were more of a lateral offense with those trillion, million, billion screens.
Under the previous offense administration.
Yes. I think, as long as Wolfpack Nation is patient with that and they're willing to accept some of that risk, then I think we're going to be just fine.
Absolutely. Yeah. Macon?
No, I think to me, I think it was probably for this list you have, and you only limited yourself to 3. I really think what's going to be key with the offensive line, I mean, it is the blocking. I think the run blocking we were good at. We weren't scoring a lot rushing the ball. I think we'll touch about this later. But Brennan Armstrong being a mobile quarterback is going to help hide some of those things to the offensive line because he can create on his own where the offensive line will fail at times, may fail. But to me, you got to be able to establish the run. And I know Dave Dorn's a very balanced mindset kind of guy on offense. So I'm actually, I won't get all into it. I just think it's a big deal. I think it's a big deal that we didn't, that's rolled up into your offensive line key there.
The one thing that we didn't mention about that offensive line is penalties. Don't put yourself in positions where, you put yourself in behind the chains, you have negative plays, you want to minimalize those type of actions. And the more clean you play, the easier it is to get first downs. It's just, basic math. If you're in 3rd and 10, 4 or 5 times a game, you're probably only going to convert one of those, an opportunity.
Well, and the beautiful thing for that is in terms of tough environments, we're not going to Clemson. We're not going to Death Valley. We're not going to, Doak Campbell Stadium at Florida State. Like UConn, I think will be tough because first of all, it's the first game of the year. And also, I mean, they're going to be excited for that game. So they're going to be bumping for sure. And then Virginia Tech, I think that would be a very tough one. But I mean, Virginia, Duke, Wake Forest. I think that, it's great, then it should play well that, we're not going to necessarily more likely play in a, 110 decibel, environment where they can't even hear necessarily besides Virginia Tech, which is next to last game of the season. So by then they should hopefully have it pretty much figured out. But I think that first game, a little bit of a tough environment first game. It'll be very interesting to see how many false starts, things like that we have that first game.
I will say State, I looked at the stat real quick. State was middle of the ACC last year in penalties. They were 7th out of 14. So they were like literally the middle. I think the stat was they had 13 I can't remember the yards. They had 57.5 yards on average per game they gave up to penalties. That's how the ACC collects that stat. So for reference, the best was Wake Forest at 40 and the worst was Louisville at 65.5.
So really not that big a difference.
Yeah, we're talking it has to be a mature team,
time and place.
Mindset. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And also too, I mean, 2 other guys which I just thought of in terms of playmakers that we didn't even mention were Damari Collins and Chris Tootle as well. I mean, so again, just mention that, but again, so basically, point being, we have a laundry list of different playmakers who could be playmakers for us season. So, touching on a couple of keys here from the comments, in-game alpha saying 3 keys for offense. Quarterback to wide receiver connections, 100%. That's why it was so key to just get Brennan Armstrong to be that number 1 guy so early on. Running game must be threatening, 100%. We'll talk about it a little bit later. O-line has to win every snap and no false starts. I think that's a perfect summary right there. Ken said better myself. Also, too, got to give a shout here to Michelle, who moved in her daughter today to NC State. So excited for her. My daughter has commented that she will feel like a state student when she attends her first football game as a student. It's definitely a fun environment for sure, and definitely hope she enjoys it. And then in-game also gives some thoughts on defense, which we'll get to that here in a second. Winston says tight end is going to be huge with Penix. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is just keeping him healthy. Again, we've said it. If he's healthy, he's all ACC.
I will say this too, is another guy I think is getting overlooked. I really think Chris Tootle is going to have a piece here of this offense that I think Penix is getting the attention because of the versatility that Anai can use. But Tootle looks really good from the offseason. And he's made some really good, I think, like a red zone threat for him.
Yeah.
So it's just a thought. So I don't really hear a lot of people talking about Chris Tuda a
Well,
lot.
and I'll take that even further. The Sebro brothers, they
Sure.
had some nice plays last year, especially in that Carolina game, and then in Louisville as well. Towards the
Clemson
end of the
scored a
season.
touchdown.
Yeah, said
Yeah.
Sebro scored a touchdown in Clemson.
Yep. So yeah, I think there's a lot. I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill on some of this stuff. For me, it is offensive line play because that's as Coach 2J says, big men lead the way. So I just think we'll go as far as that offensive line is able to get us.
100%. Hunter adding here, running games open up like crazy, and we could throw the ball down the field with a mobile quarterback again. I mean, just because that's another thing for the defense. Like, if you're a defense, like, who are you going to watch out for? Who are you going to focus on? I mean, you can't, because I look at two other guys, and then two other guys will come out. It really just depends. And then Hunter also too mentions watch out for Collins. Could not agree more. So
I think the last thing I want to say too about these playmakers is you have a good amount, and when you're playing in the South, especially in the early months, you're going to want a good rotation, and so it's
True.
to be able to roll 2-3 deep. And not probably lose much in the production standpoint. I think that's a huge thing that's not really being talked about a lot.
Agreed. All right, so let's move on over here to 3 keys for the defense, y'all. So again, I think for me, for us, this should not take as long as the offense side, because it's pretty plain and simple in a lot of ways. So first and foremost, number 3, finding depth at cornerback. Obviously, we know Aiden White and Shaheem Battle are your two guys. Probably arguably one of the best tandem of cornerbacks in the country. Aiden White being All-American, Shaheem Battle being a multi-year starter, a lot of experience and talent there. So I think we'll be very sad, those two guys. But it's kind of who's behind them. That if Aiden White, or Shaheem gets their helmet knocked off or something like that, or if they are exhausted, who's going to step in for them for a play or two? That's really the biggest thing here. Making thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm just looking up. Steve, that's a good point. I was curious to see who that would be. I'm looking here on ourlads.com, just the depth chart. They've got, and this, I don't know if this is true or not because it's not official, but they've got Terrence Hinton, who is a transfer corner. He's as a second string behind White. And I think the most prominent name is Tayshawn Smith. That's probably my third corner I'm looking at. And then you've got guys like, I've heard some good things about the true freshman Brandon Sisse, who we interviewed here. Friend of the podcast, friend of the show. I've heard some whispers, some rumblings of how he's looked really good as a freshman. I don't think you want to rely on him though. So I think you don't have a ton of depth there. Maybe you slide your nickel at times over, but I really think it's going to be put on a guy like Tayshawn Smith, Terrence Hinton, to do that. I don't know who the other pieces would be. That's actually a good catch, and I didn't really think about that. So, yeah.
But then also, I think like a freshman in Brandon Sisse, who's been very impressive, this offseason. That even though he's a young guy, again, we're unless there's an injury where they have to take over, which luckily enough, I guess Aiden White's been overall pretty healthy, knock on wood, but it's Shaheem that maybe has a little bit of history. But hopefully we're talking about maybe just a play ever so often, especially early in the season. But Greg, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, depth is big in that 3-5-5. You're like making, you just mentioned that nickel
3-3-5, but yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, you got you.
Yeah, you're gonna need a lot of cornerback play, and it's finding that nickel, and then if someone, assuming that one of the edges go out, the nickel slides over to one of those, and then you need to find a new nickel. So
right.
Yeah, we'll see. I think as you pull up on the without looking at your other keys, I think you're going to see depth potentially again at linebacker. We know the starters are solid there, but who's that next rotation up? So
yeah. Well, you might be surprised here, but so we'll see. But I think luckily enough, cornerback's been a position that Doran and the staff have really focused on recruiting wise over the last few recruiting classes. So I feel they should be pretty confident about what they have there for sure. So let's move on to our second one here. Need our D-line take the next step? There's a lot of guys here on the defensive line that I think have been waiting to take that next step in the elite level, like with Savion Jackson, CJ Clark, and even like a Davin Van, who all have been guys that have made an impact, but I think that could easily contend for like that all ACC caliber, if they can take that next step. Now, I know that one of the things with this defense, they'd love to switch guys out, not necessarily have a guy that plays, 90% of the snaps, to just keep the guys fresh, for sure. But I think that's kind of the biggest thing for me, is that just since there's so many of those guys that are there and they have the talent and have the experience to take that next step, I think we definitely need that, especially when it comes to pass rush this year. We always do typically a great job on the run defense, but getting to the defense, getting some more sacks this year, I think is going to be huge, especially early in the year against like a team like Notre Dame, where you got to get Sam Hartman. You can't let him sit back there all day, and because he can make any throw that can ever be named. So, Greg, what are your thoughts here on this point?
Yeah, I mean, the guys you just named, CJ Clark, Savion Jackson, and
Davin Van.
Davin Van. I agree they need to take the next step, but it's not because of lack of production. It's just been injury bugs for all three of those guys. They've been injured at some point, especially Savion. He was really coming on last year before his injury. Agreed. And so I think if those three guys can stay healthy, you could potentially see some all ACC honors coming their way. And then just, again, if you get that pressure from your D line, though that's not really our style with the defense we run. They're more of just to kind of eat up blocks and then you let your linebackers come in and clean up. But if you get pressure from those guys, it makes your corner's job so much easier. They don't have to run with guys for 5 seconds and let the scramble drill find guys wide open. So if you get pressure there, you're making money all day long.
Yeah, Macon.
I think the guys who are behind your starters are what I'm curious about.
Mhm.
Like my first two names that come to my mind are Travali Price and Brandon Cleveland.
You got Noah Potter.
Noah Potter was added in. It's a guy who I know he originally was at Ohio State. Where did he transfer from? Was
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, that's right. I'm just curious to see what we have, besides Price and Cleveland at the 2 deep. I know they brought in a JUCO guy, Jakevius Hibbler, or their nickname is Red Hibbler. He's a guy who's a pass rush guy. You could watch his film. I've watched his film from when he showed at his JUCO, his junior college there, and he looks really good getting the quarterback. I don't know what he brings to you other than that. Strength. That is definitely his strength, is pass rushing. But beyond that, I'm not sure. So that's my thought here, right? So let's say something happens again with one of these guys. Something's going to happen probably. So can Cleveland and can Potter, can Price? Price probably is your 4th defensive lineman, right? But who's your 5th and 6th guy if you have to get there? I think this defense is going to be really good.
You're gonna run 6 anyway, just because of the way they like to run the rotation.
Right, but State has been really good on defense, and they haven't played. I'd be curious to know what their snap count was, how many snaps they played on defense.
Well, I'm telling you right now, Noah Potter to me is the dark horse that's not getting talked about a lot, but I think can make a huge impact this season. God, I'm excited about him.
Yes, he can. Yeah, I just don't know. I just haven't seen it yet. So
right.
Yep. And then you were talking about the next guys up. We Coach Doran has talked about Isaiah Shirley a couple of times in his post practice conferences. That's a guy you probably want a red shirt, but again, if he's someone that can contribute right away, there's no reason why you would just sit them. But
yeah,
I think we're gonna be. I think we're going to be, I know we're harping on, we're just finding little things to talk about because this defense is so good.
Yeah. Well, and it really leads to this number 1, which might be a little bit of a cop out, but I mean, really to me, just like you're saying, I think it's the biggest key, which is, if it'll let me click over, sorry. Stay healthy, like just injuries. Like again, like a guy like Peyton Wilson, who he said, he wants to show the next level. He can play 2 years healthy. CJ Clark, Savion Jackson, injuries have killed them. If they could stay healthy, Cheyenne Battle, some injuries have plagued him over the years. If he can stay healthy, like again, if you told me right now that every single guy on our defense was going to be healthy the whole season, To me, it's the best defense in the ACC, no question about it. I mean, like, that's a simple statement right there, and I'm saying that convincingly. Now, I know the one thing you brought up, Greg, is the question about depth of the linebacker position, which I'm actually not really that worried about. I think obviously Peyton Wilson, Devon Betty, and Jalen Scott will be your main three guys, but even young guys behind them.
You got Fordham behind there.
Caden Fordham, who, I mean, dude, Peyton Wilson has been just screaming about. And then even guys like Jalen Parker, sophomore, and then even like a freshman like Kelvin McBride, who,
Jordan Poole.
Jordan Poole.
For me, it's not ability. It's just we haven't seen him play, right? Unlike, Jalen Scott last year and Betty.
Betty we've seen.
Yeah. What I'm saying, right. Those are our starters, but we've seen all those guys. So it's right. So that's my only concern is, how do we look in the 2 deep, and then, gosh forbid, 3 deep in linebacker this year. So
hopefully not.
Well, I mean, I think you're going to see, last year Betty and Scott were names that we got to know, right?
For sure.
I think that's what you're going to see with Fordham, and people already know Poole, but not maybe the slightly above average fan knows who Poole is, right? So, I think you're going to get to know Poole, Fordham, and Parker this year. I think those are going to be some names, and I've seen Poole. I would like to see Poole take the next step, but I'm mostly curious to see Fordham and Parker because I haven't really seen those guys. I think Fordham played special teams last year. I think Parker did too, but you didn't really see those guys play snaps. I saw Poole play linebacker snaps, so or at least I remember those. So that's I'm those two guys, Parker and Fordham, are the guys I'm curious about at linebacker.
Yep. And the other thing as well is, I mean, again, you have Tony Gibson, arguably one of the best defensive coaches in the country, leading them. So, I mean, I have all the faith in the world, and every in-state fan should have all the faith in the world that he's going to develop the guys. I mean, because again, all the guys we talked about, even guys like Caden Fordham, Jalen Parker, are underclassmen. So you're going to have them for 2 more years if they want to. Go ahead.
Yeah. So let me ask this then. So then, by logic, the 2 positions we have not mentioned are nickel and safety. Do we feel just as good with those guys? Because I'm looking here at nickel. We replaced Tyler Baker Williams, right? We now have the transfer from Old Dominion, Robert Kennedy, which is a funny name for a political standpoint, but still, Robert Kennedy. People are really high on him. He looked really good at Old Dominion. He may be the biggest impact transfer on defense, right? He may be the guy who came in and is going to make the biggest impact. That might be the hot take. I don't think that's such a hot take, but he's a starter on defense. He is the only starter on defense that I think is probably going to be projected that is a transfer coming in.
Right.
So behind him, though, I'm looking here at the depth chart. They've got Isaiah Crowell listed, a redshirt freshman. You probably have a safety or a corner slide over there if you need to.
You got Harris at one of them, right?
Harris. Oh, Jakeem Harris is a safety.
Right.
I thought a safety.
You're still talking nickel.
Yeah, I'm talking nickel.
I thought you were saying safety.
I'm saying those are the groups we did not mention. Right. So nickel and safety. So nickel is Robert Kennedy. And then Isaiah Crowell behind him. He's probably not ready. Yeah. So I know we're familiar with Boykin and Harris, Jakeem Harris. We're also, I think fans are probably familiar with, if they think back on it, on Sean Brown, special teams guy, right? He made a few plays. He had the intercept or the fumble recovery or the block punt recovery at ECU. He made some big tackles last year. A lot of reports about him being a really good big time player potentially. I think a big key this season on defense, I will say, is I think Robert Kennedy's gonna be a big deal. I think all these guys are, but he's gonna be counted on. Like, you are the nickel there, and if he gets injured, I don't think there's a lot behind him either. So,
well, I'll take that one even further. Is they're going to probably try to pick on the nickel, right? Because you're going to stay away from Aiden White and Shaheem Battle as much as you can. And
I wonder if they pick on our safeties. That's what I'm wondering. What people would do.
Well, and I would say, I mean,
Harris more than Boykin, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say in terms of pass coverage, Tanner Ingle. Tanner Ingle is more of the run stopper than necessarily the pass coverage guy. So, I mean, in terms of, pass coverage, I would say, I mean, again, you have your two guys there that you feel confident in, but it really just goes back to that. I think with this defensive coaching staff that you got, and
They'll
then with
scheme
Tony
up.
Gibson doing it, they'll scheme up. I have all the confidence in the world in this defense, and I think there's enough guys with enough experience, enough talent there that they'll be able to build around and be fine. But again, you could definitely extend it. Like the point about the depth at cornerback, you could add the same thing to the nickel, just defensive back in general. You could definitely do that. But there's a lot of options, a ton of options. So, all right, y'all. So let's go ahead and jump on over some tweets of the week here, and we'll get running and keep this thing going. All righty. So our first tweet of the week here, Macon kind of mentioned at it earlier, but this one actually comes from NC State Sports F1 saying, I didn't realize until somebody brought it up, but we have just one player on our roster who scored a rushing touchdown last year. That was MJ Morris, and he scored one. That's crazy. And Macon sent this tweet to us in chat and was like, yeah, I just double checked it. And so Macon, give us a little bit of the stats on it, man.
Yeah, I just looked at it today. So whoever put this out there, great tweet. I just to check on the stats. So you're looking at guys like Jordan Houston, Michael Allen, Delbert Mims on the roster last year. I think DeMarcus Jones was on the team last year, but he didn't really do anything. So it's probably a guy like MJ. Maybe you look at a guy like Julian Gray, but he didn't really get that enough to use all the passes. So you look at it, Jordan Houston had one receiving touchdown. He had one touchdown. It was a receiving touchdown. I think he had against Charleston Southern. Michael Allen had one touchdown last year, and it was a receiving touchdown. And I think that was against Louisville.
It was against Louisville.
That's it. I went back to see how we scored. That's Demi Sumo had 4 touchdowns last year. I think 3 were rushing, and 1 was a passing touchdown, a receiving touchdown. So, yeah, that's not a good look in my opinion. I'm wondering how bad we're going to miss Sumo, to be honest. I think you'll see that, those are opportunities there that Sumo got, the other guys didn't. I think you're going to see Allen and Houston step into those opportunities, and I don't think that'll be that big, but I could put the offensive line thing, right? Like, I think the rushing touchdowns will go up from like a quarterback standpoint for sure. I think I'm going to be very curious to see how many running back rushing touchdowns we get this year, because if it's a low number, I'll be very interested to see how we do.
Well, the biggest thing which I'll immediately add is that since Tim Beck's offense was very conservative, aka 15, 20 yards or less every single play, then the defense really could keep all 11 of their players within that 10 to 15, 20 yards and almost quote unquote stack the box. And again, because let's be real, with Tim Beck's offense, it wasn't very creative. I mean, again, there was a huge joke. First down was, run, second down was screenplay, third down was pass. I mean, and that was every single drive. And so I think that with the fact that we're going to be more aggressive, trying to get the ball downfield, more deep shots, it's going to force the defense to spread and to respect that deep ball and that aggressiveness, and therefore open up more opportunities for a running game to go. But also, too, I think as well, with Michael Allen having, his first full, off season, to learn the offense and to, get a lot more touches. I think it's going to be a big key. And again, where the ball could go 100 different directions, I think that's another big key there as well. Greg, thoughts here?
Yeah, and Cameron Nance just mentioned it. I just think Anai's offense is going to change the way we're going to be doing things. I think, he's going to put the ball in playmakers' hands. I think you're going to maybe see some more jet sweeps. I think you're going to get some creativity along the in the red zone, maybe some quarterback bootlegs, things like that, some run option pass things I've seen in his offense. I one has to think that stat has to get better in order for us to be more productive. I just remember a lot of red zone, especially inside the 10-yard line, a lot of just passes. The ECU game where we just try to get too cute and do things and just pound the ball. I mean, just when you get those last 5 yards, let your big boys get in there and just move some beef around and run behind them. So I'm hoping that this is going to change for sure.
Yeah. And Doc Gibbs earlier asked this question: why was our running game so bad last year, and what has really changed this year? Not talking about Brandon Armstrong scrambling, and I think it's everything that we really said. I think that again, just having more diversity, I think is going to change a lot of things. Again, just because again, if you were the opposing defense, you say, I mean, it had to have been 70% of first downs we ran the ball. I mean, like
Sure
it
felt
just
like
it
Yeah,
was it sure felt like it.
I think part of it, my first thought was, well, I don't know why, but the next thought of mine is, so we started having QB injuries, right? So Devin Leary gets hurt. I think it was the Duke. I don't know, it was the Duke
Florida
game.
State
Who was
game.
it?
Florida State.
game. I'd be curious to know what our rushing stats were prior to that. I imagine that was when I want to say that was probably when Suma was doing all right there with the rushing attack. But as we have injuries, your first string quarterback gets hurt, and your passing game from your defensive coordinator, you're probably your throwing attack is not going to be as intimidating, I think is the words. I wonder if teams started daring State to run the ball.
Well, I would go the opposite. That they dare them to throw the ball.
Or excuse me, yeah, to throw the ball. That's what I meant to say.
Okay, yeah.
Where they're loading the box or packing it in and making them throw. I mean, Jack Chambers, we all know, we've seen it. He was not throwing the football. He was running the football. So that probably made teams hone in on that, daring them to throw the ball. Then you get to quarterback number 3. Well, actually, what MJ was quarterback 2, so it was
2.5.
3. Yeah, MJ was 3, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that caught some people for surprise, and then he gets hurt, and so I just think it was limited by how they, by injuries to a degree.
That and the playbook changes too. I mean, these guys haven't had the reps at running all these different plays. And when you're able to throw the ball and or run the ball, having a balanced offense, it opens up the other. So then again, people have to respect your game.
Yeah,
they're not.
And
just
I think. Sorry,
no, I was just saying they're just not going to key in one area or the other.
Well, to Cameron's point, and I think what you're saying too, Greg, the offense was just predictable, and I would agree with that. We just talked about earlier of the 10 trillion. If we don't throw 10 trillion screen passes, then it's going to be a problem. So. Yeah, I just know that we weren't really creative last year. That's not true. There were some creative plays. Like I can think of the said Sebro touchdown play in the end zone of Clemson. There's some things there, but it was not as
it wasn't.
Effective,
I didn't think it was very.
maybe.
And honestly, I didn't think it was very creative at times. Like we ran like the Thayer Thomas pass like 3 or 4 times. Like I mean, if we're gonna do a trick play, that was always the trick play. It was like, okay, who's Thayer gonna find out there and try to throw it to? I just really think in this Anai offense, having gone back and watched some Virginia, I've watched a couple Virginia games from 2021 when Brennan was lighting it up, and yes, they were. More pass heavy, but that's just because they had really good wide receivers, and so I think again we keep saying it. Anai is going to key in on his best playmakers, and if that's a running back, then they're going to run the ball. If it's a wide receiver, then they're going to throw the ball. I mean, he's not going to just just play like whatever.
Can you see me, Greg?
I cannot. I can hear you though.
There we go.
Well,
okay.
Sorry about that, yeah.
Like,
no, here we go. That was odd. But no, so I think to your point that he's using playmakers, that to me, even if that means running backs are catching the ball more.
Right. Whatever it is.
Yeah, maybe there's not rushing attack. Maybe we have an above average amount of running backs with receiving touchdowns this year.
Sure.
I mean, I think getting Jordan Houston in space is not a bad idea. That dude can move.
Yeah.
Again, Micah Allen out in space is not a bad idea. I think you're going to see probably in your short yardage situations, goal lines, you can bring a guy like Delbert Mims in.
Yeah, the bowling ball.
I think Michael Allen's in there. Maybe you do get with Jordan Houston and he just hits a hole, but I don't know the way our offensive line set up. That's, I'm not the coach. I think you're probably going to see the former of what I just said rather than the latter. So
Well, and the
Well,
other thing too is like, and real quick, I'm sorry, Lane. Like,
You're good, you're good.
are we going to be a stretch team? Like, we're going to run stretch runs? We're going to run between the tackles? Like,
what's our identity, right?
yeah. What's our identity? And so that
Yep.
will drive a lot of that narrative.
And the last thing as well is, again, I mean, really adding in this jet sweep / versatile offense combined with the fact that Brandon Armstrong can run the ball. I mean, like last year without those jet sweeps and with a quarterback that didn't run the ball and Devin Leary, when Devin Leary meshes with Demi Sumo, who do you think's getting the ball? Demi Sumo is of course getting the ball, but if you have jet sweep coming, a pre-snap jet sweep coming across, and you have Brandon Armstrong meshing and looking at defensive end, it could go 3 different directions, and so that right there forces the defense to keep that discipline and not just focus in being like running back.
Yep,
So
keep them
that's
honest.
another thing as well. Exactly.
Yep,
But
agree.
adding into this next freak of the tweet of the week here, you were kind of making about this Bruce Feldman's freak list, how he listed top 100 freaks in terms of physically, weight room guys, and that he had Peyton Wilson 27th, Davin Van 40th, and Jordan Houston at 54th.
That
And because
surprised
again,
me.
yeah.
Like,
But-
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, like to me, it just says, I mean, like to me, I don't think Jordan Houston gets enough credit for what he could possibly bring this year. I think everybody says, he just, he's just not really that next level guy. And yeah, maybe not, but to me, like he can be that bowling ball. He can be that receiving guy. He can be that pass protection guy. He can be everything you need him to be at that running back position. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, at Meet the Pack Day, he was playing cornhole and he had like a cut off, sleeveless shirt, and I mean the dude is just built. I mean, he is a
Yeah.
solid guy, and maybe we just haven't used him in the proper way up until now in Tim Beck's offense. He had that like he started off really good in that COVID year. I remember that Wake Forest game. He went off. Like I think it was like the first game of the year. And then like I think he had a nice game like the Virginia Tech, but then he kind of disappeared for whatever reason. So I think he's a guy that can really make some noise. And I know we keep saying it, but this is a new offense, a new day. I just think you can't take like you take last year with a grain of salt because obviously it happened. But
Mhm.
I think it's going to be completely different, and we're going to be shocked by what we see here in 9.5 days.
Yeah, agreed. And kind of Hunter kind of mentioned this a little bit. Like, can we see a little bit of a connection,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of connection to kind of Austin Eckler ish, with
Yep.
Jordan Houston, a smaller but really built guy that can do it all. That's an Austin Eckler. So, not saying he is Austin Eckler for sure, but I mean, kind of the same mold per se. So, yeah, so definitely looking forward to seeing what can happen there. Let's move on here to our next one here. Got to give a shout out to as well to Peyton Wilson here real quick. I mean, there's no doubt this guy, when he's healthy, is one of the best, is one, if not the, one of the top 2 or 3 linebackers in the country. Going into the season, he's really trying to establish himself as, day 1, day 2 draft pick next year in the NFL draft. And if he can stay healthy, I think that's absolutely. He's easily a top 4, 5 round draft pick easily if he can stay healthy this year.
Yeah, I think the next guy on that list would be Aiden White, probably. But there's a no-brainer for me that he's on the top 100. He's a great player.
Yep. They just need to see the couple years of no injuries, just kind of like he's beat the bug, if you will.
Yeah. Cam asked the question, do we have good pass catching RBs for a nice offense? Thanks, CMC. I think that's Michael Allen and Jordan Houston all day long and twice on Tuesday. I mean, watch that Louisville touchdown. Like, to me, that again, it's such a beautiful wheel route. And yeah, I think that's exactly what you have. Like, previous years, like with Ricky Person, who's, he could catch the ball, but he's not, he doesn't have the speed, the shiftiness necessarily that you look for in that good pass catching running back. But with Jordan Houston, Michael Allen, that's 100% what you have, in my opinion.
Nice.
Anything to add to that, Mick and Greg?
No, it's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
All right, so let's move on here to another huge get here for Coach Dorn in class 2024, getting Tyler West, 3-star inside offensive lineman. Making kind of, I know you follow more of kind of what kind of offers he had, where he's from, and all that jazz. But I mean, he had offers from guys like Georgia Tech, multiple other AC offers as well. I mean, I think for me, with everything Dorn's done this offseason with Terrell Anderson, Jonathan Paylor, you name it. I think this might be the best recruiting class that Doran's ever had before the first game is even played. Like, that's the craziest part. We haven't even played one football game yet, and we have a laundry list of great recruits
Yeah.
that I think we're really excited about.
From like an on paper standpoint, it's a good class. Really, from what Doran has signed, I just leave the verdict to see how they all play out when the like 3, 4, 5 years. I like Tyler West. I think he could play anywhere. He could play either guard or tackle. I think in college, probably if he's a pro, he's probably a guard if he can make it there. But he looks the part. He puts a lot of good stuff on film, pancaking guys. You know, I like it. I mean, I don't know what more to say to that. I just like watching this guy's film. When a lot of other sites who are a lot smarter than I am saying this is a guy you want, I just follow along with that. So, yeah, really, really good get for State. Is the guy in the mountain? I feel like the mountains of western part of North Carolina is getting a lot more talent developed lately. I can think back, I can think Aiden White's from there. You've got Isaiah Shirley. I can't even think of a guy, Rico Dowdle, South Carolina guy, running back who's down in the NFL, who State was recruiting about 4 or 5 years ago. Like I said, he's now in the NFL now with the Cowboys. So
there was another one too we were talking about. Wasn't it Brandon? I can't ever say his name. Isn't he from out there? I thought.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Sisse.
Brandon Sisse. I don't know. I do. So I know there was a lineman who was out there, 4-star lineman, Yusuf Mugerbil, who committed to Florida over NC State. And he's from the mountain area of North Carolina. He actually now is at NC State.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah,
but I don't know where Brandon's at.
There was another guy.
I think you're thinking of Zach Myers.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Zach Myers, safety.
I knew it was a DB guy.
Yeah. So the mountains of North Carolina are really producing a lot of good talent, and I think that's cool because that does not really get a lot of attention. So getting him to commit to us over Georgia Tech was a big deal, I think, because where he's from, technically Georgia Tech is closer than Raleigh. So he's just going to stay home, play for his home state, and really, really good get for Dave Gordon, his coaching staff.
And just kind of add a little bit of background, Tyler. So he's from Andrews, North Carolina. So another North Carolina guy, a 3-star recruit, had offers from Duke, App State, East Carolina, Georgia Tech. And he's also put his number 30 overall recruit in North Carolina. So I think that's now 4 top 30 commits in the class 2024 class from North Carolina. So great to see it, and excited to see what we could do.
I think there's another guy. Yeah, I remember seeing this guy. He's not high. He's actually committed to Alabama went to Christ School where Zach Myers is from. Caden White. He's committed to Alabama to play linebacker, 4-star. So it's you start getting guys in that part of the state, you're it's proven to be a pretty good pool of talent there the last few years.
100%.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, there's a reason App State has been as good as they have, right? And that's kind of like, they're recruiting out in that area. So
sure, yeah.
Last thing here from Doc, talking about, I'm sorry, Doc, wish we got in this second earlier, but saying last year it almost seemed like we opened season with our defense will win for us, approach, which I 100% agree with, especially again, I mean, talking about the Syracuse halftime speech where Doran said, yeah, we need a pick 6 or, fumble recovery for a touchdown. That's definitely not the approach you want to have. So I think that this year, again, if you can have top 50 offense in the country, you're going to win 75% of the games this year. So excited to see what we could do. All right, so let's jump on over here. So we got 2 more quick things to touch on here. So first of all, the news about the over $300 million renovations coming to PNC Arena. Press conference was last week, and NC State Pac 18 here kind of summarized it beautifully, saying if you're an NC State fan, this is fantastic news. Is once again over $300 million. NC State does not have to give 1 cent of that $300 million, and what comes of it is completely updated place to play, lights, suites, seats, you name it. And again, from everybody's talking about from a tailgate perspective, Corey Smith here from Pack Pride saying in total, NC State is expected to lose 2,000 of its 14,000 spots, and all of them are on the PNC Arena side. The tailgating culture doesn't appear to be changing too much as once again too, there are going to be some parking decks put in as well. But also, the other thing which I have to remind everybody once again though is that I think Boo Corrigan made very clear that we have time. None of this is going to start until I think summer of 2024 is when they're planning to start some of these renovations right now. So I mean, Boo Corrigan, the staff has time to think about and start making plans to make up for these 2,000 spots that are going to be lost. And I'm sure maybe Greg, you might be potentially one of them, for sure. So we'll see. But again, just
I'll hold my
trust the
judgment.
process. Yeah, no. Well, again, because in the big picture outside NC State, it's great for the city of Raleigh. It's great to finally get this. A higher tier facility for hockey and for concerts and things like that. So
Well,
it'll help bring a lot of money. Go
I'll
ahead.
add this too. I think what you have now at PNC Arena is a venue, but what they're going to make this is an experience.
A destination,
right?
yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, you're going there for the experience of being there. Like part of the going to see the Atlanta Braves, people are comparing what they're doing now to the Battery. And when you go there, it's not just like a trip there to see the Braves play. You are experiencing all of the amenities and the fun that can be there that's not purely baseball related. So I think the Nationals are kind of trying to do that a little bit around their stadium too. But this is what State's going to be able to do. Carolina's not going to have this. Duke's not going to have this. Wake Forest's not going to have this.
True.
And I don't know of one school in the ACC that will have something like this, besides maybe
Louisville.
Yeah, Louisville.
Louisville got a little
Louisville's
something.
a venue, right? Louisville's a venue, right? So
well, and just because it's downtown, so there's a bunch of bars right outside of the arena. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, you're talking about for basketball.
Basketball.
Gotcha.
Yeah, basketball.
Yeah, I mean, or okay, well, if you want to go football too, I mean, it's
football.
I don't think a lot of schools have that. Yeah, something that nice. And it's not going to be something that's immediate, but it'll be very interesting to see. I would say UVA is right there near downtown Charlottesville. You
It's
can
still
walk
a good
to
little
it.
walk, though. It's still a
Yeah,
good
but I
walk,
mean, we're
though.
talking if
Yeah.
that's the comparison, that's
Right.
that's terrible. Or
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know about Miami's Hard Rock Stadium.
There's nothing at Hard Rock.
Right. So
Yeah, no.
it's nothing. It's nothing. So I mean, State's going to have a big advantage from these are young kids too that are all that like want the cool stuff, and this will help. So
Yeah,
and the fans like when them come out.
Just bring a lot of money. Bring a lot of money to the city of Raleigh, to NC State. So excited to see it. And again, I mean, sponsorship opportunities, for sure. I mean, again, there's going to be a lot of people coming to town, so a lot of great sponsor opportunities as well. All right, so let's jump on to our last thing here. Got to give a huge shout out here. Love this picture from looked like the joint practice between the Las Vegas Raiders and the LA Rams. But you got a picture here of Drake Thomas, AJ Cole, and Jacoby Myers from the Raiders, and then Tanner Engel and Laurel Murchison from the Rams. And all these guys, making an impact for sure. I mean, again, AJ Cole, first team All Pro punter.
That's crazy.
Drake Thomas, who we'll talk about here in a second, but Jacoby Myers, who's been a multi-year starter, a guy that's, talked about as, one of the top 50 wide receivers in the NFL, which is, an amazing feat for sure. Being
Just signed a new massive contract too, so he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And then I mean, Laurel Murchison, who's jumped around, but he's still playing. Even a couple years after leaving NC State.
Had a nice career, right? Nice career.
It's making money.
Exactly. Making money, 100%. Can't argue that. So again, it's just awesome to see. And again, I think for me, if you're Doran, you send this picture out to every recruit that you can to be like again, we put guys in the pros, and these are all these guys besides maybe Drake Thomas were not 4 or 5 star guys. They were 3 stars or less. They weren't big names, but guess what? They're making a name for themselves in the NFL, which is development.
And I definitely think Drake's definitely making a case for a spot on the 53 man, at least on special teams. I think Tanner's doing some good things. I don't know if he'll make the roster, but he's definitely a potential practice squad guy. Yeah. So I mean, that's all you need is just keep getting a chance and keep progressing. Yep.
Yeah. And again, I mean, this tweet right here from Tristan Kahn talking about the Raiders undrafted free agent Drake Thomas had a 90.4 run defense grade, which is first among every rookie in the NFL and third among every player who played in the preseason, aka not just rookies, every player.
Money.
I mean, again, I mean, and He led the Raiders defense in their preseason game this weekend in tackles. I think he had 9 total tackles. So I mean,
like 1 or 2 for loss too.
One for loss.
Yeah.
So I mean, like he's a guy right now that I mean everybody from the Raiders organization has said they'd be crazy not to keep him on the roster. Like I mean, he has made an easy case for being on the depth chart for the 53-man roster.
And here's the thing: if they try to sneak him onto the practice squad, he might get sucked up by another team on their active roster. So they probably won't screw around with that. I think he's doing everything that he needs to do to make that squad.
For sure, 100%. I mean, again, because I mean, if he's producing at that level in the preseason, imagine being underneath, underneath the shoulder of, their star pro defensive end / linebacker,
Mason Crosby.
Mason Crosby, somebody like that, learn from him a little bit, which I know they're not saying, but I'm
not
just saying.
Mason Crosby. That's not the right. It's
Max
Crosby. Max Crosby.
Crosby.
Mason
Max
was the
Crosby.
kicker. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So again, I mean, like give
That's
him a
Bill
year
Cosby.
to learn. No. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, like
no.
but I mean, like give him a year, to give him a couple of plays every so often, and he can be easily an every down linebacker in the NFL, in my opinion. So, making Greg, any last thoughts here, man, before we wrap this thing up?
Almost 9 days.
Almost 9
No,
days.
I think it's really cool seeing these guys in the pros doing the thing, and to me, it's heartwarming. But it's cool, like with Drake, it's like he's a guy he's making it. Tanner was always undersized. I know Thayer's still trying with the Vikings. I don't know how that'll go for him, but
Drake Pitts has had a nice camp with the Bucs so far. He's had a couple nice plays.
Right. I don't know if anybody heard about Tyler Baker Williams by chance with the Chargers.
Yeah, I haven't really heard anything.
Yeah,
No.
the whole point is they're just kind of seeing like maybe they would all make it in, but I don't know. I think with a guy like Drake, who is kind of like the heart and soul of your team last year as a captain. Well, he was a captain, right? He was a captain.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's just cool to me, right? I mean, that's cool. So
yeah.
And
a
again,
guy like
go ahead. I'm sorry.
And well, no, because I'm about to move to a different point. So go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it doesn't matter. Just give guys an opportunity. They'll earn their way through. And Drake's been kind of the guy that's always been counted out, if you will. Undersized, and he just does his thing, and has been a consummate professional all since he got to state.
The only last guy which I want to talk about, which we didn't mention, was Isaiah Moore. Who I know was put on the IR for the Chiefs, and unfortunately, I think that the biggest thing that has stood in his way in his college years, and unfortunately might stand in his way in the NFL years, is injuries.
What did he do? That I never saw what it was. Was it his knee again? Like I don't know.
I don't think they ever said.
Yeah,
I didn't think they ever said. They just said he got put on IR, and it's like, well, so I mean, he's had issues with his knees in the past. I mean, he wore knee braces on both his legs.
Right, he tore the ACL against Miami, so I didn't know if it was something related.
So I mean, it breaks my heart, and definitely not counting him out by any means, because again, if he can stay healthy, I mean, there's no doubt he'd be a great asset to any locker room in NFL. But just if you're in NFL, you just can't hold on to a guy too long that's unfortunately unproven and has a lot of injuries. So, but again, my heart and prayers go out to him that he can find a way to get back and compete. Yeah, he's got time, 100%. So the only last thing I'll say is next week, what we're going to plan to do is make next week's show a call-in show, quote unquote, where you can click the link, join in here. We'll bring you one at a time, and I would love to hear everybody's season predictions this season. What you think our record's going to be, who you think we're going to beat, lose to, etc. And just kind of get a little bit of thoughts from Wolfpack Nation. As again, by that point, we'll be only 4 days away. 3 days away actually from NC State football, baby. So it's going to be awesome, and we'll love to include Wolfpack Nation, our amazing followers here, as we count down the hours until NC State versus UConn, y'all. But again, just as a reminder, if you haven't already, we released 8 episodes over the last 2 weeks. So if you haven't checked out all of those yet, make sure to go and do that first and foremost. Again, that was a ton of content, which was awesome for sure. So make sure you don't miss out on it. Also, this upcoming week, starting tomorrow, we'll do our season predictions, where Greg, making myself, and Michael do our season predictions and record predictions for 2023. So make sure to stay tuned for those. And if you don't want to miss out on those, do me a big favor and hit that free subscribe button, hit that free notification bell, as it really helps support us and to make sure that you're notified whenever we release any new NC State content, which being that we're heading into football season and during football season, there's going to be a lot of it. So make sure to not miss out on that. And do us a big favor, y'all, and to go ahead and hit that like button if you enjoyed this conversation. And also make sure to give us a follow, Tuffy Talk Now, on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, y'all. But thank you all so much for joining in with us. Really do appreciate your thoughts, comments, and we look forward to seeing y'all next week and hopefully hearing your season predictions for this year. Looking forward to it, y'all, and we'll see y'all then. And go Pack, y'all.